Why isn't it working? It's connecting to audio.
Hi, I can hear you. So if you can mute yourself there. May have already muted you for us. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for today's training, Taking Good Photos with Your Phone. Today is Monday, October the 19th, 2020. And today's webinar is a production of the Virginia Small Business Development Center, which serves the Lynchburg region. Through 29 centers across the Commonwealth, the SBDC provides training and technical assistance to small businesses. The Virginia SBDC is headquartered at George Mason University. It is a program that is a cooperative agreement between the U.S. Small Business Administration, premier institutions across Virginia, and our local governments. My name is Stephanie Keener, and I am the Executive Director of the Virginia SBDC, which serves the city of Lynchburg, Amherst, Appomattox, Bedford, and Campbell counties. We're locally hosted at the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance in downtown Lynchburg. And today we're co-hosted by the Downtown Lynchburg Association. The DLA is an accredited program of the Virginia Main Street and the National Main Street Center, a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. For more than 2 decades, the organization and the city of Lynchburg have worked together to sustain and develop downtown as a vital economic, cultural, recreational, residential, and historic center of our community. Our instructor today is James Ford, who serves as the marketing coordinator for the DLA. James is an avid photographer, and you can see his lovely work on the DLA's social media. I encourage you to go and follow Downtown Lynchburg Association on Instagram, Facebook, and all the places. He is also an avid hiker, thrifter, and explorer of new cities, no matter the size. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the chat window. We will facilitate those questions during a Q&A at the end. And so James, I am going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
You are welcome.
It is good to be here. I'm excited to talk about something that I love and that I'm passionate about. It was awesome this past year when I started with DLA. I really got to turn something that was kind of a hobby into more of a job, which was really exciting. So hello, everyone. I can't see you guys because I'm sharing my screen, but I hope that you've had a great day and I hope that you learned something from this presentation. So today we're going to talk about good photos with your phone. And so while I do use a standard DSLR camera to take photos more around the city, of buildings and of people, I started taking photos with my phone, and I resort back a lot of times to taking photos with my phone. So I believe that I have some good knowledge to share today. So I think one of the important things about photos on your phone is having a good phone to use. So this doesn't mean that essentially there are enough editing apps and there is enough, I guess, tips and tricks to use to get a good product photo or a good photo of your shop or a good photo of a meal, things that you want for your social media. But it definitely helps to have a newer version of a smartphone. So that can be Apple, that can be Android, whatever you'd like. But don't worry if you don't have the newest version, because there are plenty of ways to work around that. But Christmas is coming up, maybe you can ask for a new one. It'll definitely give your social media that extra pop, which is nice. All right, let's see. I want to talk about accessories that will help provide you the tools to get that perfect product shot. So this is for whether these images are for your Instagram or your Facebook, any types of social media, for stories or for a website. maybe you want some product shots to upload to your e-commerce website. This is going to be super helpful. And I will share some links with you guys at the end. There are plenty of DIY ways to make a light box. So I want to start with a light box. This is going to really make your products pop, and this is going to be crucial for your e-commerce site. And so essentially a light box is just a tool to kind of get those professional looking photos of your products. And so whether you're, I don't know, a thrift store or a clothing boutique selling earrings, selling candles, a restaurant owner, whatever you are, and you want kind of that, just like I said, professional looking shot, you're going to want to use this light box. And that is going to be more for those e-commerce sites. Like I said, I don't necessarily think the light box is the end all be all. And I think you can get the look you're wanting and more of that authentic look kind of with the shop and with products around without a light box, but it's very useful if that's up your alley. There are, like I said, cheap, $20, not cheap, inexpensive, good quality, inexpensive light box options on Amazon or Walmart, Target. You can find these, but there are also plenty of ways to make your own light box. YouTube is littered with DIY ways to create your own light box. So tripod is another very important accessory. So your tripod's going to be great. One, when working in tandem with the light box, you will set your phone up and essentially have that same angle, but then you're going to twist the product. And so if you want that aerial shot or wide angle or close up, you're going to leave the camera where it is and then move the box and the product. And so you can picture it, you're on an e-commerce website and you're swiping, looking at all the different angles of the product. That's going to be super useful and helpful and make you stand apart when it looks like you had these professionally done. A tripod is going to be great too if you're doing video, or I mean, honestly, just for stability, if you want to get some great shots, some great stills of the shop, or more staging when you're staging your products. This is going to be super helpful using that tripod. Stabilizing your camera is super important to ensure the images of your product come out sharp and consistent. And so a tripod is going to be great for that. Obviously, a lot of images when it comes to social media and stories and uploading things quick. I mean, you have to be flexible. You have to be kind of ready. And that's the convenience of having a cell phone, having an awesome camera in your pocket. That's what's so great these days, is that we don't have to lug around a huge camera or find that we're unprepared because we don't have our camera ready. We can just use our cell phone. So you're not always going to have time to set up the tripod and lug that around, but when you do and you're intentional about it and you set aside a time to, hey, we just got this new shipment, we're going to take product photos of all these, a tripod is going to be essential. Next is a light ring. You can see the photo of it, that bottom photo. By the way, that top photo is the kind of makeshift DIY light box. You can tell it's kind of on someone's kitchen table, but that's what's so nice about it, is that your consumers are going to think you went into a professional studio and got these done and paid top dollar, but you really just used your cell phone and no one's going to know. That's the best part. So a light ring is going to really enhance that focal point of your product. And this comes in handy when natural light is not easily accessible. Also, light rings, they make them nowadays that you can attach it right to your iPhone or smartphone. I use an iPhone, so I'm used to just referring to all smartphones as iPhones, but there are Android users and we forgive you. So yes, you can attach it to the front so it's facing you, or you can attach it to the back so it's facing out, and that's going to be great I think an awesome way to engage, and I know this class is more about photography, but as a social media manager as well, I think having that light ring is going to be awesome for when you are putting yourself on the screen and engaging with your followers on social media. But also, like I said, it can flip both ways, and that's going to really enhance your shop photos, photos of food, and photos of products. So those are some accessories. Like I said, I will get those links to you guys, and you can find some good ones for yourself that fit your need. All right, so iPhone or smartphone aside, accessories aside, when it comes to photography itself, I think one of the most important kind of rule of thumb is finding good lighting. And so when I'm walking around in downtown Lynchburg and I head into a shop because I need to get some product photos, or we have a new shop opening up and I want to get some photos for our website, I am looking for the natural light. And so a lot of times you're going to want the natural light behind you and you're facing the product or the people that you're taking photos of, or the food that you're taking photos of. And you definitely want the light behind you, and that natural light is going to give your photos a crisp kind of professional look, like I've been saying, rather than just kind of a grainy, looks like it was taken on a razor, you know. So yes, look for natural light. Another way to kind of go around that natural light is having that light ring, like I was saying. But essentially, you're going to want to get your product shots by the window. You're going to want the light behind you. You're going to want your food shots by the window. If possible at all, that is going to be your best friend. And then that makes it easier when it comes to editing at the end. That's going to make it easier. It's just going to make your photos pop. And when your photos on your social media have lots of natural light in them, or just kind of look like it's an inviting, exciting environment. And if you're a bar and you're only open at nights and you don't have natural lighting, that's totally okay. There's ways around that, and it's really not the end of the world. And that's why editing is our best friend. And also that moody lighting could be a part of your brand, you know? And so that's not saying that you can only get good photos if there's natural lighting, but that is going to play a huge role. And yeah, that's something that I think is important. All right, so the background of your photos, like I said, once you find your brand and kind of own it, and you can pretty much pick up what your brand is from your logo and your website and your demographic and your location, what your shop looks like. And so some of these coffee shops have extremely minimalistic brands. Everything's white, everything's simple. And then some of these, I'll stick with coffee shops. Some of these coffee shops have that super vintage kind of historic look. And so you're going to really want to hone in on that when taking these shop photos and product photos. And so in your background, let's say I'm just going to stick with coffee. It's going to be the easiest thing. I know there's a large range of people and business owners on this call, but you're taking a photo of this incredible latte art, and you're going to, I'm imagining you're adding some leaves into it, like from a plant nearby, and a postcard and a pen, and just like really like kind of tying in this experience to your brand. And so you don't want it to be too cluttered. There are ways to take decent photographs and that professional look without it being too cluttered, you know? And then you're going to want your product to be the focal point. And so that's going to be in the foreground, and the rest of, whether it's the shop or other products, in the background. And I think that's what's so great about these phones, is that we are able to use, well, not all of that's why I said at the beginning that it's very helpful to have a newer version, but portrait mode is going to be your best friend, especially when it comes to product photography. And so that's going to do the job of the really nice DSLR camera and not cost as much as the DSLR camera. And that's also anything that your iPhone can't do. There are editing apps that can, and VSCO is a really great one at doing that. And so we'll get into that later. But having that focal point for your product is going to really make it pop, and keeping your photos on brand is going to be what ties your social media together. And when a social media account is cohesive and inviting, and like I said, kind of offers this experience that they can get, excuse me, that your consumers can get through just their phone before even going into the shop, and they know what to expect, that's going to be huge. That's going to really make you stand out and make people coming back. So that's exciting. Alrighty. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but some different angles when it comes to product photography. So as you can see, this top photo of the looks like a some sort of, what's the word, succulent. So that looks like all of these photos, by the way, were taken on smartphones, but that is going to be what that portrait mode got them. And so if you have meticulous details on your products that you want to stand out, if you're just looking for different ways to make your products pop, say you have multiple photos in a row, you can kind of do that carousel effect on Instagram or on your website if it's a product photo, and you want to really hone in on one aspect of the product, that's going to be super important, and kind of just gives some more depth to that photo, like you can see, and really makes those little leaves pop. That bird eye effect above the let's see, looks like some that says spiced rum and some watches. So that kind of look really started to explode when iPhone photography started to become popular, and that is going to be taken from a tripod. I mean, some people, there's definite ways to take that with your just hands, honestly, looking above it, but a lot of ways that's taken with tripods, and that's how a lot of the famous YouTube influencers make their stop motions, and just kind of, there's creative things that you can do with that bird eye view. And so that's going to look really well if you're, let's see, taking a photo of some shoes or wanting to get creative like they did here and just put a bunch of products that kind of, like I said, really enhance that experience mentality when it comes to their brand. And then obviously straight on, you're going to want to really try to look for that symmetry when it comes to your product shot. You're going to want all eyes to be on that product. And so it's not too busy, it's not too cluttered, and that product is your focal point. And ultimately that straight on shot is going to really draw your consumer's eyes to the product. All right, we're gonna get a little bit into editing. Before I do, I just wanna say, it's really important to focus on the big picture, no pun intended, but when it comes to taking a photo of a product or of a shop or of a meal, you don't want it to necessarily be, you don't want it to be underexposed or kind of just confusing, like, is this in their shop? Is this on a table? Like, think big picture, like what exactly it is, the message that you're trying to convey to your consumers. So when it comes to editing, the three most important things when it comes to editing your phone photos, or any photos in general, but specifically phone photos, is going to be lighting, color, and size. And so I will touch on these specific. All right, so exposure is Oh, sorry about that. So exposure is the amount of light per unit area reaching a frame of photographic film or the surface of an electronic image sensor. So that's an extreme definition, but essentially it's how much light is coming into the lens when the photo is taken. And so on here, I have an example of image that's correctly exposed and then overexposed and underexposed. And so overexposing your image is going to allow way too much light to come in, and it just looks bright. Here it says if the image is overexposed, we're missing information in the brightest pixels of the image. If we decrease the exposure, it kind of enhances those highlights and dulls those shadows without underexposing too much. And so I'm gonna hopefully towards the end go through this app that I hope a lot of you have downloaded and kind of walk you through what that looks like. But exposure is going to be your friend when, say, there isn't much natural light, or you don't have a light ring and you're in a darker room, or it's cloudy outside and you just don't have much option to a lot of light. That's where you're going to be able to overexpose your image a little bit in the editing process and get that look that you want. And same with if it's extremely sunny and you're taking a photo of the storefront of your shop and you want to underexpose it a little bit, that's something that you can do in the editing process, which is extremely helpful. Let's see, trying to go to the next slide. All right, so saturation is going to deal with the color of your image. Let's see, I want to read you the exact. So, oh my goodness, how did I get that far back? Sorry about that, guys. So it's the intensity and purity of a color as displayed in an image. And so the higher the saturation of the color, the more vivid and intense, and the lower the saturation, the more of like a grayscale look that it has. And so this is a fun way to really make your photos pop, but you want to be smart about it and not necessarily make it look unrealistic, you know? And so the sky shouldn't necessarily look gray and the grass shouldn't necessarily look brown unless you're taking a photo in the desert. But saturation is going to be a really cool way to really draw out the colors of your product, and essentially with exposure as well, if you really want to make the look of your shop or your product pop, you can play around with the saturation, which is great. All right, I want to dive in a little bit to the rest of these editing terms. And so contrast is going to also play with the light of your image. And so you're going to, it's going to play with the sharpness of the light. And so when you're bringing that contrast down, it's going to kind of dull the edges a little bit, and when you bring that contrast up, it's going to sharpen everything up. And so we'll walk through this on the app. Like I said, white balance is going to ultimately white balance. You take a photo and it doesn't necessarily transfer onto the camera exactly how it looks, and so you're thinking to yourself like, that wall is white in person that I'm looking at. Why does it kind of look yellow in my photo? And so you're going to be able to play around with that white balance, which is essentially the temperature. And so you're going to make your photo warmer or lighter, and it's going to, you can pretty much play around with it until you have the image that you like. Cropping an image is exactly what it sounds like. That's going to be cutting things out that you don't necessarily want. And so you may be taking this photo with your phone and you might think this is exactly the shot that I want, and then you get to your computer or your phone and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, that just, I don't want that extra shelf in there, or that person's in the background and they're just like distracting from the product or the rest of the image. And so you're going to be able to crop them out, which is going to be super helpful. Let's see. Oh, that says presents. That's supposed to say presets. But we will get to that. I have Christmas on my mind. All right, so sharpening an image is going to essentially tie in the edges of that product. And so if you bring up the sharpness of your image, essentially all of these are just ways to make your product pop, which is awesome. That's exactly what you want, or to make your shop photo pop, or the image of your food or the coffee. It's gonna really bring up kind of the value and the professional look of that image. Clarity and sharpness are kind of go hand in hand. I rarely use both. Clarity is going to kind of deal with the full frame and full photo, and either going to dull the edges of the entire photo or sharpen the edges of the entire photo, whereas sharpen itself is just going to deal with kind of that focal point in that product. And so it essentially is up to you which one you think looks good. I think something that's fun is to play around with all of these, which are going to be in that VSCO, I pronounce it VSCO app that we mentioned downloading. All right, not presents, but presets are going to be pre-made kind of overlays, essentially all of the adjustments that you're making for editing these photos. What's really cool about the VSCO app is that you can save like exactly how you edited one photo. You can save it and then apply that edit to every photo that you bring in. And so sometimes there's going to be, excuse me, more adjusting that needs to be done. Like if I'm taking a photo at noon and at 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., but it's of the exact same thing, all of those are going to look different because the lighting is different throughout the day. And so you're not necessarily going to just pop a preset on 10 images and they all turn out perfect. You might have to play a little bit with the white balance and the contrast and the sharpness, but essentially this preset is going to really tie in your brand, especially when it comes to social media. If someone's coming to your feed and they can, it really cleans it up, honestly. And it's going to, what's cool about VSCO is that there's hundreds of pre-made presets and you can play around and find one that you like, find one that specifically works with your brand, works with the products that you're looking for, or the products that you're trying to sell. And that's going to be a really cool way to just find cohesion within your brand. And something that those became extremely popular when social media blew up, especially once Instagram kind of became this business marketing hub. And so a lot of consumers are looking for kind of that brand cohesion. And so when people are going to your page, are they seeing that you know what you're doing, or do your photos just kind of look cluttered and unprofessional and just like there wasn't much thought put into it? So that's going to be the pros of presets. Let's see. Everything freezes. Okay, if you have the VSCO app, and I'm going to jump back into kind of wrapping up with just last minute like tips and tricks for photography in general of your products, but I'd like to walk through it really quick just to kind of show. I wish I could share my phone screen, but if you have the app, just humor me, and I'm going to walk through this editing with you guys. So essentially you're going to open up the app, and if you could, this is going to be helpful, find something around you on your table, or it can be quite literally anything. I have this LaCroix can, and so go ahead and just take a photo of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just going to walk through what this editing looks like. And so I want you to open up the app. If you don't have this app, you should download it. It honestly is going to be your best friend when it comes to editing photos, like post-production, post photo shoot. That's going to be something that is really helpful. All right, I'm getting mine in. You can see my LaCroix can is in here. All right, so exposure, like I said, it's gonna, you bring the exposure down, your entire photo gets darker. You bring the exposure up, your entire photo gets lighter. It is just a really cool way to play with the lighting that is, that is going to really kind of, it's cool that it can bring the light in and without like taking the actual photo, you know, that's what's exciting. There's a lot of times I'll take photos and I'm like, oh, the lighting is so bad, but I just need to deal with it. And then you get home and you get on the VSCO app and you're like, wow, you wouldn't have even known it was 7 p.m. You know, it looks like it's noon, which is kind of crazy. So let's see. All right, contrast is really going to, like I said, play with that sharpness. These all kind of tie into each other. But if you're bringing the contrast up, it just really brings out the edges of that LaCroix can, that is mine, or kind of really just softens everything up. The next one is the cropping tool. And so you can see there's a lot of pre-made sizes, which is extremely beneficial. Some people, especially when it comes to product photos on your website, you're going to want that same crop on each photo. And so that's going to be helpful. As you can see, the sharpness is going to really sharpen up the edges of that of the product that's in the center. Mine is the LaCroix can, as you can see. I'm sorry, that's not very helpful, but it's really going to sharpen that up. The next one is saturation, really bring out that color. If you dull it down, it's going to grayscale your photo a lot more. The white balance, like I said, that's going to be the temperature. And so you can either, you could take a photo on outside of your coffee shop on some patio furniture in the middle of the summer. But if you play around with the white balance, you could make it look like it's the middle of the winter, which is cool. You can play with that temperature. And then there's some really great, not necessarily necessary for product editing, but you can play around with skin tone, the grain, and then add text. There's just kind of some creative ways to really make those photos pop, which is awesome. Some other free editing apps that I want to talk about, Snapseed and Lightroom. Lightroom's by Adobe, and Snapseed is just another app that was created once iPhone photography got popular. But if you don't feel like you like the layout or the flow of VSCO, I would check these out. They're all free and they're all extremely helpful. And like I mentioned about presets, they come with a bunch of pre-made presets, and you can play around with the ones you like. You can create your own, and once you kind of find one that fits your brand, that's going to be really beneficial to just slap on all your photos and tie that brand cohesion together. I think something that's really important is to have fun and get creative. I don't think there's any huge, super just like blatant rules when it comes to what's off limits. I think there's really helpful tips and tricks. And like I said, that's going to be keeping your product as the focal point, keeping your shot clutter free, finding that natural light, the importance of having that light behind you. And so your product is lit, your shop is lit up. That's going to really just make all the difference when it comes to taking photos of products. But I think there's room to get creative and try new things. There's room to just think outside the box. I think that's where trends come and go, and you might be the first one to create a new trend, which is great. So yeah, when it comes to engaging and when it comes to posting engaging content, what's going to really make you stand out is the pop of your photo, whether it's from that great lighting or the color or the focal point of that product, but also the cohesion of your brand and kind of offering that experience. Like I said, if someone's looking at your Instagram, whether you're a coffee shop or a restaurant, or a thrift store or a retail space, offering that experience through the phone is going to be a game changer. Yeah, so that is a lot of what I had. I would love to jump into some questions, Stephanie, whenever you are ready. I know that was short and sweet, but it really is simple when it comes to iPhone photography. I think that's what's so great. They've made it really just easy to pick up for multiple different business owners and generations, and just really making it easy and accessible from your pocket, which is awesome.
Sure. So we have just mostly some comments. I would draw everyone's attention to the chat box where James's co-worker Susan has been showing you some examples of what some of the topics that James covered here for us, like composition and other things, creating a clutter-free but creative experience in the DLA's Instagram account. So you can see what we mean by clean composition with an angle, or what the natural light really, how that really helps some of those. And if you wanted to, James, you could stop sharing your slides and pull up Instagram maybe,
Sure.
and show us some of those examples that Susan is pointing us to. But
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
go ahead and start with a question. One of the big, and Lena says, thanks for the app recommendation. I had fun editing a photo of my cat. I think
Yeah, I
that
love
we
that.
all, oh, look, there's the SBDC's webpage.
No way.
I know that I use Snapseed pretty regularly when I'm just kind of fiddling around with taking photos on my phone. And speaking of cats, I find Snapseed pretty easy to use as a free app. But I also tend to use Google a lot. So, oh, Susan, yeah, feel free to unmute and jump in here. I was going to say I use Google a lot, so I'm just wondering if folks are using Google and Google Pixel phones, if they should maybe go to Snapseed as opposed to something like VSCO. Susan, you're welcome to jump in too.
So I just wanted to, as I have been watching James go through this, and he's pulling up Instagram to be able to go through some of his just kind of tidbits and reiterate some of those composition notes that he was hitting. I just want to just give a couple of things that I want to make sure you take away when you leave here. And one of the things is, be creative and be on your own brand, but maybe you don't even know what exactly that brand is. I definitely encourage you to take a little time and just, search some random hashtags, maybe find some brands that could inspire you. Just because you're showing your own product doesn't mean that you have to do it by yourself. You can definitely, if you see things and tricks that you like on other accounts, don't blatantly copy them, but use it as inspiration on how you want to set up. I think that's a really great way to stay fresh and inspired in what you're posting and how you're taking your pictures. I do love the ideas of having some gadgets and having that light box, if you have products that can go in a light box literally on your kitchen table, because that means that you have a tiny studio. Even if you have a bit of a cluttered space, you can just make a small maneuver and no one has to know that you are in your garage that also duplicates as your kids' tap studio, that also duplicates as where you're making your own personal jewelry. It can be very clean and have that great composition. So I love the thought of having some of those. And like James says, he'll share some of those links for some inexpensive options, but also do it yourself. I mean, I love a good do it yourself project. So those are a couple of things that were sticking out to me as you are looking at how you can grab good photos. Also that natural light that James talks about. I have personally gotten to be with James as he's been taking some of these photos, literally where you see a hand holding up a gift card that is likely my freshly painted nails or something like that. And knowing that, yes, the light behind you, and you have to be a little tricky on how you're trying to get some of the shadows out of the way, but having that slightly shaded. You don't want direct sunlight because then you're starting to having to do too much to pull that contrast out. So some of those quick tips were great. James, were you going to pull up the Instagram, the DLA Instagram, and go through some maybe some of our more highly engaged with photos to talk about some of the tricks that we've used there?
Yeah, for sure. Can you see the Instagram?
No,
Nope.
we're still
Oh.
seeing the Virginia SBDC page.
Oh, no way. Okay, give me a minute. Sorry about that. This whole time I thought. All right, there we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Oh.
Nope. Now we're seeing your text. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
God, I love a cluttered computer desktop.
Oh, who's that cutie?
That is actually my boss's son. We have this event going on Tunes and Takeout, which is on Tuesdays, and that was down at one of our takeout patios, which is great. So yeah, as you can see, we had a new salon open up, and so these are examples of the light is coming in from the right. The right of this photo is where the street is. And then you can see the lights coming here, but that's an example of the lighting was just really great that day. It was just kind of illuminating that whole shop and kind of made it easy to snag those photos. Like I said, with kind of keeping the focal point in the center of the frame, there's not too much going on here. Same with here. This is an example of like what could have been a more cluttered photo, but I actually brought the exposure up on this so that it kind of draws the attention to the kid. And then you can see I brought some of that saturation up to make the colors pop. And so there's just cool ways to really bring out the focal point.
James, by that, did you mean that with that exposure down a little bit, you saw more of like the cars in the background, that your eyes were going to there, or?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of bringing the contrast down and the exposure up kind of gave that depth perception of, like you said, kind of blurring the background a bit and then really drawing the eye to him.
And James, do you recommend that people try to do a little bit of, for example, on the iPhone, I know you can touch an area and bring focus toward that space. Do you recommend that people do that while they're constructing the shot, like in that moment, or do you think that should be done with editing tools later?
I think there is flexibility for both. I think if you can get comfortable with kind of cutting out that middleman and making it easier on you post-production and just kind of getting the shot that you are looking for right from the iPhone, I think that's awesome and something that you definitely should work towards. So yeah, like Stephanie was saying, when you pull up your camera roll, there are a ton of different options just for exposure to bring the lighting and the contrast down. You could do it right there. But I think the iPhone, or sorry, just smartphones in general, do a great job of doing that automatically. And so, like you said, Stephanie, when you tap to bring the focus onto an object or kind of try to bring that lighting down, it does a great job of doing it automatically for you, which is really, really cool about smartphones today.
And I have another question sort of in that vein. Do you recommend that people zoom in using their phone, or should they do that in their editing tool?
Yeah, great point. Specifically with a phone. And so the newest version of the iPhone was kind of a game changer for that. And so there's obviously the option has been around a little bit for portrait mode, and I know that the Androids have that option as well, but I don't necessarily ever recommend zooming in. If it's possible to get closer to what you're looking for, you should physically get up and go move yourself before you zoom in necessarily, because especially on iPhones, that's one area that your smartphone is going to lack a little bit, is that as soon as you zoom, it's going to really kind of take the pixels out of that photo. It's going to look a little more blurred, and it can definitely be fixed in the editing process. But I think if anything, to answer your question, I would crop the image after you've taken it rather than zoom completely in. Obviously, there's ways around this. There's no perfect answer. I think personally, I would just rather physically get up and get closer to what I'm trying to shoot so that everything is more clear. But there definitely are times that you can zoom and you'll be able to tell that the photo still looks great.
Yeah, don't get close to a snake on the trail or something like that.
Sure. Yep. There are definitely times then you should just zoom. I'm going to try and find some. So you can see here, really jumped on this focal point with these pastries. But I really wanted to create this experience that those that come into this shop are going to get. And so you can see the pops of color, you can see the plants. Just seems like a welcoming, exciting, kind of aesthetically pleasing place that people are going to want to see for themselves. And so it's a little bit of a teaser here. It doesn't necessarily show the whole shop, but any treats that look that good, you're not going to be able to pass up. Here too, these are just some good examples of product shots. This is a good example of kind of the entire shop. You can see I wish I could draw them for you. Just the like kind of symmetry here, the lines just really play into the way this image is balanced. And so nothing's crooked. This is kind of like what you're getting. You want to really try to portray like, what am I going to actually be seeing when I walk in there? And when some of these images are cropped funky or tilted or a weird angle, that's going to just create kind of an uncomfortable.
And do most phones still have the guidelines if you turn on the lines in order to take better photos? I think that those settings are still in most of your phones.
They absolutely do. Yeah, almost all phones do have that. And there's plenty of times that I think I'm taking a photo straight on and then I pull it up on my phone and I'm like, this doesn't look straight at all. So that's what's cool. There's a lot of ways to kind of, once you're in that cropping process, to just tilt one way, tilt the other, kind of line up those lines. And almost all cameras, like you said, and photo editing apps will give you that grid that really helps make that easier on you.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes people are shy about using that stuff. Go ahead, Susan.
I was gonna say, can you click on that photo of Philippine Delight? I'd really love to. There are a few photos here, and James, I know, took all of these, maybe not on his camera phone, but some of the composition really holds true, and I'm sure he has edited them as well. So this is a great shot of the new owner of Philippine Delight, but go ahead and click next on that. You can see how you could have taken this in multiple ways. And to be quite honest, I think James would agree. Go ahead and take them from all of the angles, you know, especially it's not the days of film. So you don't have to worry that you're going to waste your time processing bad pictures. It's digital. If you don't like it, you can delete it. So this is obviously an angle, but you could have gone straight overhead if you had the right lighting scheme set up and it reflected correctly. But go to the next one, James. I think that this angle draws you in. And then this was, he took the food back to the office. No, I think that's at his house. I think that's James' plate right there. And he plated it up and he put it by a window and he took some photos of it before he ate it. And it just looks lovely. It takes it to a new level that I think you can really, truly appreciate. Sometimes you might have some beautiful pastries that the symmetry and the repetition in the case, they seem like they should look great, but then when you actually take the picture, there's some weird shadows in there and it's blurry, and maybe your best bet is actually to put one of them on a plate and go near a window and get just one stunning photo of a singular item rather than a hurried, rushed photo of multiple ones. And I think some of the things that we practice, I know it seems like we're telling you to do all of this and think of all of this, you know, in the moment, but James and I were just out downtown earlier today getting photographs for our inventory so that, you know, we might not use all of them at once, but we will release them. These ones were particularly for shopping, for retail shopping. So maybe we'll use one of them next week, but maybe we won't use them until December when we're talking about holiday shopping. It really is great to have, if you have some time and you can invest in it, go ahead and do it, and then have them stored in a resource that are quick and easy to grab. So you don't have to always be thinking so in the moment. You can pre-plan, which is a nice segue to Stephanie. I don't know if there are any more spots left.
Yeah, I was going to say, Susan, thank you for saying all of that, because I think that is a great segue into reminding everyone that we do have the social media planning, content planning system with Double Tap Media coming up on Tuesday, the 27th. When I checked this morning, there were 2 seats left in that. And I am just about to mail out, we said we would print out the guide for the first 20. Those, if you're one of those 20, you should be getting that in the mail sometime this week. So you have it ready for you for Tuesday. But yes, we do have the social media content planning. That's a 2-hour session coming up on Tuesday morning. So go to the training calendar, spdclynchburgregion.org, and click on that training calendar and grab one of those last 2 seats, because I think it's going to be a really fantastic session. Having gone through the planning system as I was printing it all out this morning. But yeah, I mean, part of it is just getting that backlog built up, right? I mean, you have the ability to you know, get that planned and have the things that you want to post for the next several days. You know, I think that one of the big mistakes that we make with photography or with social media content planning is just simply thinking, oh, I have to do that right now. I have to do that right now. But if you can block some time and get things, you know, in the hopper for the next several days, you're going to free up your time in the future, and have something you can always talk about on your social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Susan actually made a really great point, and she knows I do this because she's seen my camera roll, but I will take 20 of the same kind of photo, but different angles, just in case. There's been plenty of times when I think I got the perfect shot and I go back and I use a totally different photo, kind of the same product, but it was just a different angle. And so she made a great point. Take multiple photos from different angles, different lighting options, and you might use one for Instagram and then one for your website and a different one for Instagram story, you know. And so it really is beneficial to have kind of multiple options to work from, just so you don't feel stuck. And if you end up having too many of one, it's just far too easy to delete them.
For sure.
Yeah. Here's another one. kind of that plate of food. Let's see. This is a really great example of just good symmetry. You have your eyes are drawn to the couple with the dog, but then kind of the beautiful wide angle of the buildings, getting the words in there. It's just a good example. There's some other food ones.
Yeah, and you guys don't hesitate to ask a question in the chat if you would like to do so. You guys are making us really hungry.
Yeah, I'll just show you all of our food shots.
All the food shots.
So go ahead, Susan.
Oh, I was gonna say that one's great. And also the items from the telethon, I think show a great view on composition, because there's a lot in there, but you see a couple of clean lines that really allow your eyes to go straight to that pin in the center. So there's a lot that's going on with a lot of lines, but it's very balanced, and it's not confusing. You know where you're looking, and you know what's definitely supposed to be what you're looking at.
Yes, great point. So this is a good example. This is one of the hotels in downtown Lynn Sugar Grove. There's a lot of depth here. You can see there's almost there's 3 different rooms that you're kind of looking at, but the symmetry here, the balance, everything's kind of scaled correctly and just looks really clean. That's a good example if you're trying to take some shop photos. So here's another one too. This might feel like it should be cluttered, but when you see it, you're not necessarily overwhelmed, because when you add in the man's hand reaching for the product, it draws your eyes there. So I think it really is key to kind of find that focal point where it's drawing the viewer's eye. Stephanie, were you gonna say something?
No, I just
I thought
checked
someone
and
started chiming in.
somebody grabbed a seat while we were sitting here, so 1 seat left.
Oh,
I'm the
wow.
social media playmate.
I was gonna say, we really love some questions. I know it's great going through and auditing our website, our Instagram, but we'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to ask some questions privately, maybe ask for some feedback directly from James afterwards. I'm sure we can do a little bit of just initial thoughts on maybe some changes or some suggestions on maybe lighten up the contrast here or something to that nature, but it might be a little scary to ask in a forum of people that you don't know. So we can definitely provide James's email or my email, and we'd be happy to kind of do that for you. But also, James, you have those links to some of the inexpensive items that
yes.
You want to send out with Stephanie as a recap for?
You said get them to Stephanie? Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to just go over those quickly, that we can just finish up that way, and then we'll just let people know what to expect in their email when we do a follow-up.
You said go over those links. Sorry.
Yeah, just go over those links. No, that's okay. If you want to just go over the links really quickly, and then I will let people know what to expect in their follow-up email.
All right, I know everyone can see my screen, but I'm wondering where my slides went.
I do see a question which asks if a light box can be made by spraying the inside of a cardboard box. I don't know the actual absolute answer. I would think that depending on what you want that aesthetic to look like, you could. But in my experience, when you're spraying cardboard boxes, they are a very porous material. So I would think that you're probably going to have to put on quite a few coats, and you'll probably be wasting your time a little bit when you could just go grab some foam boards and tape those together from the outside, and then they're going to be nice and slick and have a very smooth finish, as opposed to worrying about huffing some spray paint.
Yeah, I used to be the director of an art show, and our artists had to submit their products, particularly, and this was particularly true when we would get jewelry and pottery in as to be juried. Um, you could tell an immediate difference between folks who had used a light box in order to really construct the photo that they were sending in for jurying. It was you could see light better on the whole product. You could see detail. It gave you time. You weren't out in the elements trying to, hold your piece of pottery and show all the sides or whatever. You could see it made a big difference. So particularly if you are uploading products for e-commerce, I strongly recommend that you get a light box set up and practice with just how those photos look.
Well, and the great part about that too, Stephanie, I know for e-commerce, I think e-commerce is definitely different than your social media. So what might work on social media, the product that you have on your e-commerce platform, I just want to see a crisp view of it, and
Agree.
with that tripod setup, so like James is showing with a tripod setup, you have that tripod set there, you put your product in, you take a couple from this angle, then you just twist the product a couple more. So you literally can have the same stationary tripod, get the same angle, but have multiple sides. And it gives you that 360 view that I think consumers really want to be able to see. If they can't touch it, they just want to have that assurance that what they're seeing on screen is what they're getting, which also goes to the point with the light box. You'll get a really nice crisp image, and you'll have really pure color to it versus I think we've all done some tricks. If you've been on Instagram, even me right now, I have a window. If you can see me, I have a window. So this is all natural lighting, but maybe I take a picture and I start to adjust that contrast and it looks like I've been tanning in the Bahamas, which is a fallacy because I will burn in the Bahamas, but somehow I look like I have this natural glow. And in a way, I look at it and I go, well, I filter that, and that is not actually how I look. And it's like a false sense of portrayal. But with products, you don't want to do that because you want your consumer to be able to get their product and be like, I wanted an evergreen bracelet.
Yeah.
But what I got is a teal bracelet and it does not match the ensemble that I was going to wear it with. And I'm going to write a really bad review. You want that transparency and that clarity in what you're selling.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about these light boxes is that there's not much post shot editing that needs to be done. I think you can really kind of get the whole feel and good shot of your products once they're in there. I know this one is small. This is just one from Walmart, but I think something that's really cool about it is the options to have kind of these different backgrounds. But like we said, there are plenty of DIY ways to do it, and those you can find all those blogs or videos on YouTube. But then a tripod as simple as this, like Susan was saying, if you take this angle and tilt it down, you're going to be able to get that shot, that kind of aerial shot of your products. So yeah, there's a lot of good tools that will help you out.
And to that point a little bit too, I know that there are DIY ways. Sometimes you realize that the effort for the DIY is not worth when you could have just purchased something. I know one DIY that I have done that has worked when I was at the Lynchburg Community Market, we needed some light boxes. And I actually took one of those styrofoam coolers with the really thick styrofoam ones that you grab from the corner store and put your bait in it to go fishing or whatever the case may be. And I took that, cut a hole in the bottom part of it and attached a can light. So one of those clamp lights that you get from Home Depot or Lowe's, that's $5-10 at the most, so that the light is on the inside. You can still clamp it because the clamp is on the outside. And then you just tape some tissue paper, a few layers of tissue paper over the front to diffuse the light. And it has this glow that comes out of it. And that's a quick and simple trick. But I also know that in today's day and age, my husband literally bought a light ring. He's a teacher, and he said if he's going to be teaching the kiddos online, he might as well look good doing it. So he bought a light ring, and it was, I want to say $40. It wasn't expensive. It had 8 different color settings. I think there's a setting that you can strobe through all of them, which we joke that we're going to have a dance party in our basement using just his light ring, going through different colors. But you can really set an atmosphere and a motif with it. And it is not, things have been getting quality, but for less cost as we go along. It's just how it is. So,
Any questions from anyone? Is there any like scenario you can imagine yourself being in and you're like, I just wish I knew a better way to do this, or kind of an easier way to get the shot that you're looking for? Are there times that you're like picturing this shot, but you can't necessarily get there? If not, you can, like Susan said, email us after with any questions or specific.
sorry guys, my cat was eating butter.
Yeah,
so-
we do have a couple of questions in the chat box.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
I don't know if it's okay or not, but can a light box be, oh, Brian spray, but sorry, you already did that one. Yes, we can email you a link to those products, Lena. That was the question that just popped up. We can do that. Just know that, you know, these are just recommendations. We're the Small Business Development Center, so we'd always like for you to find a local retailer to find those from. I'm sure you can find something right in your backyard from a local retailer if you possibly can. So these are suggestions, but we will send you those links. It is about 3:15. So, you know, James, do you have any just parting thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I think like Susan said earlier, just get creative, have fun with it. Don't be too hard on yourself, but also just really try to take your time finding your brand and your voice, and being confident about it rather than just kind of feeling rushed and throwing on some presets or just grabbing some quick photos. Like, be intentional about it, and think about what your consumers want, or what you would want as a consumer. I think I like to always try to put my self in kind of our demographic and people that are viewing our content's shoes, and think like, what's exciting, what's engaging, what's going to get them like wanting more and sticking around. I think there's a way to keep your followers engaged with the photos that you put out, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So I think what I want to say off of a spin off of that is that with that creativity, don't be afraid to look a little silly. Maybe you have to stand on a chair to get that perfect shot. Be unapologetic about it, because ultimately, well, I mean, don't stand on other people's chairs and hurt yourself. But, you know, you might look a little silly doing it, but in the end, if you're getting a good shot that's going to sell product for your business, that is going to be good for your business. And with that in mind, if you're doing things and it doesn't seem like they're working, change up the strategy. So, you know, try to find that brand that speaks to the people you want to speak to. But you know, there's always time to reinvent yourself. And we surely have. We've gone through different phases in our social media. We've gone through times where we've been very, you know, focused on human beings. Some other times that beautiful landscapes have been really successful for engaging with our followers. So it just feel it out. No one has the 100% right answer, but if you have an image that has great lighting and good content strategy, I think you'll find success there.
Yes, for sure. I think those are great, wise words. So we have one more of our Marketing Mondays at 2:00. I guess we'll call those, Susan. We do have a conversation with Virginia Tourism and Lynchburg Tourism and the Downtown Lynchburg Association next Monday at 2:00. You're welcome to register for that event. I know that some of you folks are who are with us today are not necessarily in the Lynchburg community. Which, that's fine. Just be prepared to have a very Lynchburg-centered conversation if you're with us next week. We do welcome you here to come and see downtown Lynchburg if you are not in the Lynchburg community, as you've seen in our on our Instagram sharing. It's a very beautiful place with some delicious treats in it. And again, I think we just filled up on the social media content planning seminar for Tuesday at 9 a.m. We have lots of other training that we'll be introducing in 2021 at the Virginia Small Business Development Center and at the Small Business Development Center that serves the Lynchburg region. So just make sure you check our websites. The Virginia SBDC can be found at virginiaspdc.org, and we can be found at spdclynchburgregion.org. You will be getting a follow-up email with an evaluation form and links to the products and a link to the video. So give us about 24 hours or so to get that stuff pulled together for you, and we will see you again soon. Hope you have a great day, and remember to stay safe and wash your hands and wear your masks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.